Tycia was a beauty, the only daughter of Antonina. There was a son before Tycia, but he wasn't spared, he died as a baby. Since then, Antonina withdrew into herself and completely submitted to her husband. The parents raised their daughter with love and care, although the father was strict, his word was law in the family. The mother also submitted, and Tycia, when she was little, also grew up obedient, under parental care. But she had her own character, and she was renowned in the village for her beauty and intelligence. And at the age of 20, she was ready to get married. That's when the family conflict arose. She had been dating Jaeger for a year already. The expression, "the first guy in the village couldn't be better," suited this handsome guy perfectly. Always well-groomed, tidy, he was listed as some kind of accountant at his father's office. He played the guitar, performed on stage in the club, drawing sighs and admiration from the village girls. His father was a respected man, but Jaeger didn't have a very good reputation, he hadn't served in the army. The father tried his best, speaking with the villagers with dignity, the girls stuck to him like burrs, and he among them, sang songs, showing off. But then he turned his gaze to Tycia, and that was it. He chose the most beautiful one. From a simple family, well, okay, at least there was something to boast about. And Tycia fell in love so deeply that she couldn't sleep at night. Remembering his hands on her shoulders, gazes eye to eye, and hot kisses on the lips. And now he had proposed to marry her, but father was adamant. "No," he said loudly, "I won't give you to this dancer, his soul is empty. Your eyes can't see, blinded by love, and then you'll regret that I didn't save you from disaster. So, do I have to remain at your mercy with girls?" Tycia didn't give up, tears streaming down her face. "Why with girls? Will you marry Fedor, well off, like a stone wall behind him? He's not like that, lazy under his father's wing." "Who will you marry?" Tycia objected. "I won't marry someone I don't love." "Mom, don't tell him, can a daughter be given away without love and consent?" "You can." "Daughter," the mother replied. "They gave me away, and your father and I lived in peace and harmony all our lives." Ignat looked into the eyes of his beloved daughter. Grown up, beautiful, stubborn, and he couldn't bear the thought of her living an unhappy life. "You, Tycia, will remember my words later, you'll thank me." The next day, the girl met her beloved by the lake. As soon as she saw him, her heart sank with sadness that they would have to part. She wanted to fall onto his broad chest, so he could hold her tightly and never let her go. But Jaeger just squinted and asked, running his hand through his silky hair, "So, did father object or give his approval?" smiling as he spoke. "No, Jaeger," Tycia cried, "we can't be together, I couldn't persuade him." She still nestled into his chest and cried bitterly. "What's wrong with me as a groom? A strong girl, a respected father, our love, doesn't that count for anything?" He pushed the girl away and kicked a young duckling, cautiously waddling towards the water. It flapped its wings and fell on its side. Tycia sat down beside it, but Jaeger grabbed her elbow and pulled her up sharply. "Let's go, let's take a walk, I don't have much time." He led her into the woods, but there the girl barely escaped from him. The kisses were sweet and the embraces strong, only she didn't give his hands freedom. She pushed away the persistent suitor and ran away. And by the lake, she met Fedor. Fishing gear lay on the ground, and he held a duckling in his hands. He greeted Tycia with a nod and lowered his gaze. Hair tousled, plain face, sturdy, but short. How could he compare to Jaeger? And her heart sank again with sadness. "Here, found it on the shore, its paw seems injured, I'll take it to Dad, he'll heal it." His father indeed knew how to heal animals. Tim had been doing it all his life, and Fedor worked as a tractor driver and helped his father occasionally. Their farm was strong too, they didn't live in poverty, but they didn't live extravagantly either. 2 sisters got married, but he still lived with his parents. Tycia blushed, remembering how Jaeger kicked the duckling. She stroked its wing and walked away. She felt ashamed of what had happened, but she couldn't tell anyone. They did heal the duckling with her father, its paw recovered, and it went on living its life. And soon Taisia was betrothed to Fedor. Perhaps her father talked it over with his father, and she couldn't refuse. Jaeger pleaded with her to run away, but where to? What a disgrace to the family it would be. She imagined her father's anger, her poor mother's tears. And what if things didn't work out for them and she had to come back? No, she refused. Jaeger turned and walked away, saying angrily as a farewell, "You'll regret it, but it'll be too late, I won't call you back." Soon the wedding day was set. Unhappy Taisia cried day and night, but she tried not to show her tears to her father. At work in the greenhouse, when she bent over the beds, she thought her heavy thoughts, and tears streamed down, watering the already fertile soil. At home, her mother sympathized. "Don't cry, daughter, your father wouldn't wish anything bad for his own blood." On the wedding day, Taisia stood in front of the mirror and looked at her snow-white gown. Her parents had done their best, had it made to order. The young, beautiful bride was dazzlingly beautiful. The groom didn't disappoint either. His suit fit him perfectly, starched shirt with a tie, and his face was clean. But his eyes looked at Taisia attentively, with love, and she turned away, unable to reciprocate. Everyone was merry at this wedding, except the groom and the bride. But she burst into tears when she saw how Jaeger stuck close to Natalia, dancing with her, pouring wine for her, and embracing her by the shoulders. Whereas Fedor was afraid to even touch his beloved, and when the guests urged him, he would barely embrace her and kiss her lightly, his lips smelling of honey. He hadn't touched alcohol all evening. The night passed in a blur. Fedor held his young wife tenderly, spoke words of love, fulfilled his marital duty gently and lovingly. Taisia didn't resist, only later, towards morning, she cried, dedicating herself to her unloved husband. And now there was no turning back. When the sun peeked through the window, Fedor got up, dressed, and said despondently, "You didn't accept me, Taisia, neither with your soul nor your heart, I feel it, and I won't pursue your love anymore until you desire it yourself, but by law, I am your husband, and I will protect and love you." And he left the bedroom, and she cried again, then calmed down. Why cry now? She had to adapt to her new family. Her mother-in-law and father-in-law were waiting for breakfast. She went out, smiled, sat at the table. They welcomed her kindly, respectfully. She helped around the house as much as she could, tended to the gardens and the birds. The duckling grew up, turned into a handsome drake. She remembered how Jaeger kicked it out of anger and thought, a husband who kicks like that won't hesitate, and indeed, he soon married Natalia, but there was no life. She saw her day after day running to her parents in tears, and any feelings she had for him had long disappeared, but she didn't develop any for her husband either. Her soul grew cold. Although she pitied Fedor, she didn't accept him, didn't respond to his rare caresses, didn't open her arms to him, but her mother-in-law and mother awaited grandchildren, and what was she to do? So the days went by until disaster struck. A fire broke out at the edge of the village at an old grandmother's house overnight. Almost the entire village gathered. Fedor was one of the first to rush there. Taisia too gathered herself, dressed, and ran there. The house was on fire. People surrounded it, some with buckets, some with shovels, trying to extinguish the flames. The grandmother lamented on the side, her womenfolk comforting her. "Where's Fedor?" panted Taisia, not finding him among the others. "Isn't he inside?" her neighbor, Baba Klavdia, replied. "You have a golden husband, dear. He managed to save a lot of the old woman's belongings." "Well, where is he now?" the woman fretted, feeling her heart nearly jump out of her chest with fear for her husband. "He's inside, daughter, with the puppy. A tiny one. He ran after it to find and save the little animal." And then, in front of everyone, the roof began to collapse. Everyone gasped, wailed, and Taisia's vision blurred, and she fainted, as if cut down. When she came to, someone was gently stroking her face and whispering, "Taisia, I'm here with you, listen to me." She opened her eyes and saw Fedor next to her, looking at her with concern, and his gaze was so familiar. She hugged him by the neck and asked softly, "How are you, my dear?" The roof collapsed. "I made it out," he said. "I found the puppy behind the stove and jumped out the window with him, and then the roof collapsed." And she began to kiss him on the forehead. cheeks, and lips. And he hugged her, led her aside, and whispered, "You sit here, my dear, and I'll help the men, and then we'll go home." That's when love came on its own, without coercion. Two young hearts stirred and united as one. Fedor was such a good husband, a respectful son, and a son-in-law. He practically carried his wife in his arms, yet she didn't yearn for him, she brushed off every hint of affection. And when they found out that they were expecting a baby soon, they couldn't be happier, both the young parents and the grandparents. They eagerly began building a new home. That's when Taisia approached her father, hugged him, pressed her cheek to his, and whispered lovingly, "Thank you, Daddy, you made it so I could be happy. And for not giving me to Jaeger, I'll always remember your fatherly love and care." "All right, daughter," the future grandfather replied, "happiness is where the heart feels it. I felt it and gave it to you. Live happily, cherish your husband, and we'll help however we can. God bless you both."